Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get rolling with our State of the Stables here. This is the State of the Stables 2020. We have actually, this is our third State of the Stables webinar we've ever done. We do one of these every January, or at least we have for the last couple of years. And it's amazing the growth that we've had over the last few years. So it's been pretty wonderful to be able to do this and to see the growth. I think the very first year we did the State of the Stables, I had 6 people on the line. And the club was probably in the 40-ish people range, and half of those people were relatives of mine. So it's amazing how things have changed and how much we've grown. And honestly, I think we're really just getting started. Um, uh, Considering what we're trying to do. So without further ado, one more housekeeping item. If you have questions as I go through this, and the framework here is I'm going to talk for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and I'll be sharing a document, and we'll go through that. But if you have questions at any point, if you're in the Zoom app, you can actually go down and use the chat functionality at the bottom and ask questions at any point, and I'll be happy to answer those, or somebody else will be able to happy to jump in depending on the questions. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen here. Maybe I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. That's not it. Okay, hold on one second. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I'm going to go ahead and share desktop. Share. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my screen now, which is the document that was shared with all of the club with the 2019 recap and the 2020 stables goals. And so I'm going to go through that a little bit, and I'm going to highlight a few pieces and talk a little bit more in depth. And once again, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to use the chat functionality at any point and go ahead and ask questions, and I'll try to make sure I can jump in on those. And we'll have a more sort of formal at the end question and answer session as well. So really, 2019 for me was a very interesting year for stables. It was a year where I think the vision really started to crystallize. And I had a dream in 2017 when we started, and the dream was simple. Let's get a racing stable going. Let's get regular people to be able to feel the ownership model and do it in a safe and constructive way. And we were very successful doing that simple thing. And 2019 was a watershed year, and I'm calling 2019 a infrastructure building year. In many ways, we've laid a lot of groundwork in 2019 that is going to see results, or hopefully see results, in 2020 and beyond. And but let's talk about 2019. We had 19 wins at 8 different tracks. Part of our story, even though we have a really central sort of hub in the Mid-Atlantic area, we really want to start laying seeds and racing seeds in many parts of the country. And some of that will circle through here in part of the talk tonight. We had over 150 new club members join. We are just under that sort of 500 number range total. The vast majority of those are active club members too. We don't have a ton of churn. Like any organization, we have some level of churn where people sort of fall by the wayside, or this isn't interesting to them. But we have really low churn numbers, which is great. It probably means we're doing a lot of things right. We launched Stallions this year as a separate company, and we're going to talk more about our breeding sort of thoughts and exercises as we go down. We started some of our what I'm calling the back end businesses, supply management. We're going to look at logistics management, meaning the shipping of horses. That's also some of our back end management, although less sexy than the racing or even the breeding aspects of it. It's vital to the business that we're building. The way to really think about, and this all, like I said, started in 2019, is that what you will see throughout from beginning in 2019, probably for the next 2 years, is Wasabi Ventures Stables will actually feel like a conglomerate. And we're going to have individual companies doing different things, all sort of feeding each other and working together to make efficiencies and a better run organization that'll let us do some things that other people can't do. And we started the supply management business for our trainers at the end of 2019, and we'll see an expansion of that in 2020. We also started to add staff. For the longest time, and really for the first couple of years, this was just crazy TK sitting in the corner yelling and getting some help from his family when he, twisted their arm. But Michelle has joined formally and really serves a vital role with us with our director of community, and it really is doing some amazing things in the aftercare world, which we'll talk about. We hired George Adams, and George has become our director of stallions and breeding. George had been working with us informally probably for the last couple of years, really. But we decided to make it formal, and he actually joined as a staff member, and he's on tonight. And Adam Parker joined as a director of racing operations, another person who I've informally worked with, especially around auctions for the last couple years, but having Adam being able to come on board and work with us in a direct capacity and part of the staff is really a watershed for us, adding these 3 staff people. And we'll really have some new hires coming in 2020, which I'll get to as well. The other really exciting thing is that we've started some of our internships. Outside of racing, I've been a big believer in internships for a very long time. I have had hundreds and hundreds of interns in other business entities. Some of the people who are now really key employees in other businesses that I have are started off as interns, and now they fill vital roles. So internships are a big thing in my mindset, and something that we will do at Stables. And we had our first one this year with the bloodstock agent Lauren Floyd, who's doing a bang up job. And someday, probably sometime in the next couple of months, I'm gonna have Lauren do a webinar where she can talk about what she does as a bloodstock agent and things she's learned and things like that. I think people will find that interesting. We had a great year of racing. Probably one of the big highlights was with Suffolk Downs closing. We were able to win a really exciting race with a really large Wasabi Ventures Stables crowd out on closing day, and that was really exciting. And we rolled out our first phase of our aftercare Social Security program, which has actually gotten quietly a lot of really good feedback from industry experts. We may be the only group in the country who pays retirement agencies even when a horse isn't retired. So if a horse gets claimed away from us and is still going on and keeping racing, or it goes off and becomes a broodmare and is still active in the racing world, we still donate money to the aftercare programs that support that region. So it's really quite interesting. And we're going to roll out some more phases of that over in 2020. So those were some of the highlights in 2019. Let's talk about 2020 at a high level and some of the key things that are, and I'm going to emphasize on these 5 things and then just talk about a couple other things. But once again, don't hesitate to ask questions. If you have any, you can use the chat function in the corner. The first thing to understand, and it's important, is that breeding is a business. The breeding aspect of racing is a business. Both the mare aspect of it, the female side plus the stallion side. And we jumped in. We actually have one of the largest broodmare bands right now in the state of Maryland, for sure, if not one of the larger broodmare bands in the Mid-Atlantic area, actually now. And we've worked out great relationships with people like St. Omer's Farm, where almost all of our broodmare band is now in the Mid-Atlantic area. And we have a really great relationship with Anchor and Hope, where our first full stallion is going to stand in Force the Pass. So, but breeding is a business, and we're treating it like a business. We actually think it's a place where we can drive profit, and think of it like a business. We have a CRM system where we're tracking potential buyers and really running it like a business in many ways. Another big thing for us this year, we have been active in the past on 2-year-old sales. But philosophically, I am not a believer in the sprinting that happens at a 2-year-old sale and the buildup to get horses to a 2-year-old sale. So we're going to de-emphasize 2-year-old sales. I don't want to say we won't buy any 2-year-olds this year, but more than likely, we will only be buying 2-year-olds that fill holes for us, meaning we need a male or two to fill in for our racing stock. But generally speaking, we're going to concentrate on yearlings. That way we can control how they're brought up, and we're going to know how they can grow, and they can be treated the way we want them treated to get them to racing. In addition, we are obviously breeding as well, and those breeding will eventually end up in our racing stock, or at least some of them will. The plan today is to keep most of the females and race them internally over at WV Stables, and the males we will sell it at auction. That's the plan today. Of course, there's always wiggle room there depending on the individuals and the like. We're going to return to claiming, but we're going to do it as a strategic direction. Over the last couple of weeks, we were a very active claiming group when we first started. And we really took a small hiatus from it in the end of 2019 as we were focusing on some other things and getting some other things back. But we're actively back to claiming. We've claimed 2 horses in the last 2 weeks. Speaking of which, one of them will go up on the website, available for club members starting tomorrow. Rayo, My King, a really exciting claim down at Gulfstream. But the thing about claiming is that we're probably out of the game of the cheap claimers. When we first started, we did a lot. We claimed a lot of $5,000 and $4,000 horses, and we did that intentionally, and it was part of our strategy. It was an inexpensive way for us to learn. But our real goal is to continue to move up stack in quality. Am I saying that we'll never claim a $5,000 horse? No, of course not. But it's only going to be a $5,000 horse that we think has significant chance to move up, and we have a plan for that. But we're going to be working very heavily in multiple venues in the next few months. Laurel, Oaklawn, and Gulfstream's championship meet for the next, I would say, 2 quarters. Really through May, you're going to see us very active claiming. So for those of you who love claimers, we're in the game. So and I know you'll be excited to hear that and get back to that. The other thing that you're going to see is we're going to publish a lot more statistics. We already try to publish more statistics than a lot of people do. But one of our key metric, our key KPI for those of you in the business world is that we're going to measure revenue per start. We were around $2,900 per start in 2019. We want to get that number to about $4,000 per start. And the way that that's going to happen is that move up in quality that we've talked about. running in races, trying to run in races where, first of all, you got to run where you can win. That's the number one rule. But beyond that, having horses that can run and win in those competitive places is really part of our goal. So all of that is part of our strategy that you're gonna see. And as we look through some of the underlying sort of tactics, these 5 guiding principles are key aspects of what we're going to do. And then I'm going to go slide one more down, and I'm going to talk about just the enterprise goals here. This document has a lot of detail below it and a lot of other initiatives, but I'm going to hit these, and then, like I said, open it up for questions. You guys can obviously read on your own some of the other aspects. Across all locations, we want to have 30 wins and $600,000 in prize money. And honestly, I think those are very conservative numbers. I hope that we can beat them is the short answer. Once again, average $4,000 per start. Hit the board in a stakes race. That's not Maryland Million Day. So that means we're going to have a horse that can run in some stakes somewhere else. It could be a Maryland-based stakes, but not Maryland Million Day, beyond Maryland Million Day. We want to win our first race in both New York and Kentucky this year. I think you're going to see some things underlying there. Is that I think you're going to see us have strings in New York sometime this year. I think you're definitely going to see us have a string in Kentucky. The purses in Kentucky are really going through the roof. It is a place that we have to be, and we're going to be. And so you're going to see us working with some trainers there. Johnny Ortiz is there, and he's going to be one of our trainers in Oaklawn for sure. And we'll probably take a string up to Kentucky with him. Like to get 250 new club members. We're going to win a race on Maryland Million Day, and we're going to get 100 covers to force the pass. That's some of on the breeding side. And we're going to look to get $75,000 in revenue from the breeding operations. That's stallions, broodmares, foals, and the consignment operation. So let me just talk about some things underneath a couple of these. And I am going to mention one more on here that I think will be very popular. We have a lot of people that this is going to be good music to their ears. I am almost certain that we're going to keep a string at Monmouth this summer season as well. I've been in really deep talks with a trainer who I really like, and I've been working in the backdrop and talking with, who is going to move his tack in the summer to Monmouth, and I think we're going to send a string with him and have a string of horses at Monmouth this year. And I know we have a lot of New Jersey folks, so I know that's going to be music to a lot of people's ears. I love Monmouth. It's a great track, and I know our New Jersey folks are going to be happy to hear that as well. So anyway, a couple of things that you'll see in there. You'll see the mention of a consignment operation. That's part of our business, the back end business that I'm talking about. As we expand our breeding operations, we're also going to get our own consignment. For those that don't know that, a consignor is someone who at an auction actually manages the sale of the horses for owners. And so we're going to, usually you give that's a separate business, and we're going to create a separate business that is a consignment operation. Just like we're creating a separate business for our supply and feed businesses that we're putting together, and hopefully our equine transportation company that will probably get launched in 2020 as well. But those are some of those back end operations. They're less, once again, probably less sexy on the front end, but by doing that, it allows us to build sort of this profitable operation. And that's very helpful, obviously, to some of the things and some of the overarching goals that we're trying to do, for sure. So hopefully those are exciting things for you. You'll see some of the strategic initiatives. Oh, I should mention this. I've mentioned the string at Monmouth. We are for sure going to be at Canterbury Park, which is in Minnesota. the fine folks in Minnesota racing reached out to us and really, in many ways, wooed us to have a string at Canterbury Park for their summer meet, and we are definitely putting a string there, and it will be something that you will see. I've never personally been to Canterbury Park, but I have never met a single person in racing who doesn't say, "Wow, it's a really fun place to go." I can tell you, Michelle and I are gonna go up there at least and spend some time there during the meet. But we're going to have a string there. The folks at Canterbury and Minnesota Racing are actually going to promote Wasabi Ventures Stables. They've been wonderful partners so far. Joe Skirdo, who might even be on the line tonight, has been a really good partner for us. We're launching 2 new internships. I talked about phase 2 of supply management. We're going to launch a beta version of Wasabi Ventures Stables Travel. It's another back-end business with a little bit of the front end. The vision there is that we think we can create a travel company that creates racing and equine experiences and build a business around that. And then the very last thing is that we, over at Wasabi Venture Stallions, we are going to create what amounts to a venture capital firm for the breeding business, where investors, and it really is going to be an investment, we think we can make it a profitable offering, just like you would in venture capital. We're going to create a profitable fund setup. You'll hear a lot more about this as we launch in 2020, but we're actually going to create a Delaware Series LLC, which is probably too much legal limbo for tonight. But we're going to create a Delaware Series LLC and have a portfolio offering of both broodmares and stallion assets that a fund, that an investor will be able to buy into at a fund level. So anyway, very exciting, different types of things. As always, we're trying to look at ways to make this industry and make this business really act like a business, but act like a great entertainment business. So you've got front-end pieces and back-end pieces all working together to create a sustainable business. With all that, I'm going to make sure, like I said, open up for questions. I'm going to stop sharing because for some reason I'm not seeing the chat window. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a really good feel for what we're looking to do. Once again, feel free to use the chat functionality for any questions that anyone may have. And once again, you can ask questions about things that are in the details of the document if you've got those, for sure. I'm happy to answer any of those. I know that both George and Adam and Michelle are on the line, and they're happy to, I'm sure, answer questions as well if anything comes up. Great question. Mark asked, does the LLC, the investment fund, replace club members buying into individual broodmares and or stallions? No, it actually will not. It'll actually be supplemental and different, Mark. Because we have a whole bunch of people online, and the number of people who I've heard in our club who have mentioned to us, I never thought I could have afforded this broodmare at the price that you put it, because once again, we really try to hold down the costs, and we allow you to buy in at a very low percentage, which is, I don't know anyone else on the breeding side doing that at the price points that we do. So the answer, Mark, is no, it'll be different for sure. It'll be more like a venture fund, but that will not replace the ability to be an individual broodmares by the club itself, or stallions for that matter. What are you anticipating for the minimum ongoing investments for the Broodmare Stallion Group LLC? That was from Lauren. I'd rather not say yet, Lauren. Just from a timing standpoint, I just met with my compliance team on the venture side last week. So it's kind of hard to say what the minimum will be there. I would guess that this is something we will put together in Q2 and launch in Q2. So there'll be more details there, for sure. Just to give you even more knowledge, there are some federal laws being changed, or at least expanded upon. Once again, I don't want to turn this into a big legal discussion because that'll just glaze over everybody's eyes. But there are some changes coming down the pipe on a set of laws, Section 506 of the SEC Federal Code, that allow a broader definition of an accredited investor. So part of why we're able to do this and what we're planning on doing is that the federal government is changing the laws on what an accredited investor is. So it'll open up the ability for a broader group of people to participate, is the short answer. Once again, not to get too down in the weeds on the legal stuff, but it'll be coming. Yes, I got a question that got sent to me, and it's a really great point, and I did not talk about it anywhere, and I should have, for sure. And it's not actually even in the document. This deals with our graduate program. When I first started in 2017 and I started Stables, I said to many people in the industry that I want to create an opportunity for people to become owners. I want to create owners in the industry. And many people in the industry looked at me and laughed candidly, because most of the time when syndicates are created, the whole thing is about how do I keep you trapped in my syndicate as long as I can, so that I can sell another horse to you and not have you go to other syndicates or go off and start your own horse acquisitions. And I said all along, that's not my goal. And candidly, I built Wasabi Ventures Stables so that it's not profitable to me. So I intentionally did that so that I wouldn't have that. But in 2019, we started and aggressively pushed what we're calling our graduate program, which is helping people be a part of an ownership in their own right. And so we're taking club members who want to do it and allowing them to buy 20% of a horse. And they become a full owner. They get their name listed. And we had, I think, 8 people have graduated into horses now. We tend to only do it with yearlings at this point. It's a little easier to control. We did it with some 2-year-olds this year as well. But considering our focus is going to be yearlings going forward. And you can have your own silks. You get your name listed. So it's Wasabi Ventures Stables and the graduate. You can start your own stable. We're happy to help with all of that. We don't charge anything special for that. It's really just about helping people become owners in the safest, most educated way we can, and be partners with us. So you're going to see more about the graduate program in 2020 as we get farther out into the year and more yearlings. Once we get to the yearling, we'll have a big rollout of the graduate program for anybody that wants to take it. And once again, there's never any pressure to do that. I want to make that clear, because stepping up and taking ownership of 20% of a horse is a big step. It's real money, and you have ongoing bills and all of those things. So this is not to take away from our core of allowing people to get into horses for very small amounts of money and in a low risk kind of way. That's still going to stay a core tenet of what we do. But but having people being able to graduate is also a good part of our story. It just lets us expand as we go on. But as always, no pressure, nothing from us on that. I will never pressure anybody to buy any horse. That's a pretty straight, common thing you're going to hear from me. Let's see here. Tracy asks, can you provide a status of the 2-year-olds at Middleburg and when they will move to the tracks and what tracks they will run at? Tracy, great question. So just to back up and let everybody understand, part of what we are doing at Wasabi Ventures Stables and the entire sort of enterprise is to build an end-to-end enterprise. We have we are getting specialists on our team who do things really well, and we can be efficient and horse first in our thinking. So we capitalized on the Virginia certification program and started using Zoe Valvo. Probably 2 years ago, we started working with her, but we really centralized all of our 2-year-olds at the Middleburg Training Center, which is just a fabulous facility in Middleburg, Virginia. And we shipped the vast majority of our yearlings there to get Virginia certified. To get Virginia certified, all you have to do is run for, is have a yearling in, or a weanling, in the state of Virginia at a certified farm for 6 months. And so we did that. And what do you get for Virginia certification? You actually get a 30% bonus on top of all other bonuses at any racetrack in the Mid-Atlantic area, really on the East Coast, from New York all the way down to Virginia, Delaware, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland. You get bonuses if your horse is Virginia certified. So it's a really great program, and we're doing it in a smart way as we break our yearlings there. Now back to your question, Tracy, because so I can tell you every single 2-year-old that we have currently at Middleburg that is with Zoe is, knock on wood, ahead of schedule, looking great, smart, sound, healthy, and not a nut job. So really, to be honest with you, it is beyond what you could ask for when you have shipped. I think we have 6 there right this second. And to be able to get that many as yearlings and to get them to that spot has been really wonderful. Now, to answer your question, when will they move and to which track? Some of that I can't answer specifically because it'll depend. I can tell you that any of the horses that are Maryland bred are going to go to Maryland tracks. We have a couple Pennsylvania breds there that are going to go to Pennsylvania tracks because of the bonus program. And if they're going to a Pennsylvania track, they're probably going to up to Penn National, which doesn't mean they won't run at parks as well, but they're going to go to Penn National, and Mark Salvaggio, who we have a relationship with, obviously, and is a core part of our training team. If they go to Maryland, they're probably going to Jesse Cruz, who is now going to be in Maryland full time. So if they're Maryland breds, you're going to see them at Jesse Cruz's barn. If they are Kentucky breds or a New York bred, the options are a little more open. So it's hard to say quite yet what's going to happen to those. But I saw Adam answered that it's kind of an individual decision by the horse. But some of those guidelines that I just mentioned, from a timing standpoint, the horses have to be in Virginia for 6 months, as I mentioned. Our Jumpstart homebred is at 6 months right now. She can leave Virginia at any point. We're just waiting for the tracks to allow 2-year-olds to go to them. So she will probably be our first one to ship out, probably in February, and she's probably going to Jesse Cruz. So for those of you who are in that, by the way, we have 2 graduates on that horse as well. So that's our first 2-year-old that will have graduates that started as yearlings, and 2 club members who are now graduates on that horse. So it'll be exciting times. So Joe asks, with the industry shortage of horses, is part of Wasabi's goal to create their own controllable inventory? What do we see as the benefit of doing this? Joe, it's not so much driven by the shortage of horses, I would say. It is driven by the fact that I think we've put together a team that is equine first in our thinking. I've used that term a couple times tonight. We treat our horses candidly different than a lot of other people do. And I want, as much as I can, to efficiently do that from birth to getting them to the racetrack or to the sales ring if they're going to be sold. I want to do that. I've spent the money, candidly, to build that infrastructure. I think it's going to allow us to breed and race better horses, and I think we can do it in an efficient way. And if you're on the breeding side, I think we can actually do it even in a profitable way, and be fair about it. So that's really the driving force. It's about controlling quality and controlling how that animal is treated from birth to retirement, candidly. Hopefully that answered your question. And Tracy, I hope I answered your question as thoroughly as I could. Sorry I couldn't get more specific, but it's hard to get specific down to the horse until we get a little closer. Any other questions on any aspect of the business, or anything else that's in the document? Once again, it's while I give a couple people seconds if they've got questions, I thought it was really interesting putting this document together. First of all, everybody should understand the entire breeding section was constructed by George, the racing section by Adam, and all of the aftercare and the community stuff was put together by Michelle. I just laid out the top level goals and asked them to buy into them and put those together. They did a fabulous job. I don't know of another organization in racing, syndicate or not, that provides that much detail to the people who are involved and puts that much effort to try to run it like a business. I do things like this in my other businesses every year, but to do this on the equine side is, for those of you in other syndicates, I'm sure you're probably not getting that sort of level of detail or transparency or vision from others. But and that's not to downgrade other people. It's just going back to, I want to do everything like a business and run it first and in quality, both on the human and the business and the equine side. Overarching goals, Aiden asked, overarching auction goals for 2020. I would say, Aiden, I'll break the auctions down into 3 buckets: yearlings, 2-year-olds, and breeding. They kind of happen, they probably happen 2-year-olds, yearlings, and the 2-year-olds and yearlings kind of get mixed up in there depending on timing. But our yearling plan will be, I want to have, a lot of it will depend on how many foals we have, healthy foals coming out this year from our breeding side, and the mix of male and female there. Because remember, we're kind of building a pipeline here. Eventually, we'll use auctions only to fill holes. Now, for the next couple years, we're going to have a lot of holes because our babies are just growing up now. So I would say We are going to be very active in the yearling auctions this year, both uh, Kentucky, Maryland, New York, and Florida, OBS. Those will be all 4 yearling auction venues we will be active at. Um, we are going to, and so we always work for value. One of the things that I take immense pride in is the number of people in the industry who come up and talk to us afterwards, come up and talk to our team afterwards, and you should have pride in this too, who come up to us afterwards and say, it's amazing the amount of work that you put in and the process that you do for a relatively new stable, and the quality of horses we're able to get. Um, the yearlings that we got this year, some of it is luck, obviously, that they've turned out as well as they've had. There's always luck in that. But it wasn't, and to get them at the prices that we got and for the work that we did, that's kudos to the team that you see at Stables. So that's, we have an immense pride in trying to find value. We're never going to be the people that buy show toppers. You're not going to see us buying horses at crazy inflated prices. We will not do that. We're going to look for value and smart buys, which can always be had if you do your homework. So long-winded first party answer, Aiden, but we're going to be very active in the yearlings. I don't want to throw out a number, but the number will be a decent number, at least probably the number of yearlings that we had this year. And you may see 1 or 2 that creeps up in price as well, as we continue to eke up. Once again, always looking for value. I'm not talking $100,000 yearlings, but you may see some yearlings that are more in that 20-ish range than before. 20 to 30, I think you can get really amazing value sometimes. So you might see some of that. The 2-year-old sales we will be at, but we will be very, very selective. If we end the entire 2-year-old cycle, by the way, we'll be at the sales. We'll be networking and meeting people and looking at horses and all of that. Frankly, George, who was on the staff, we joke internally. I think George has a picture of every yearling for the last 5 years at every sale anywhere and notes to go with it. So we always joke when we claim a horse that's like 3 or 4 years old, George probably has a picture of it as a baby somewhere. And he almost never lets us down. So anyway, we're going to be active there, but mostly from a research standpoint. And once again, filling holes. I don't want to say we're not going to buy any, but we are going to be highly selective of who we buy from and what we buy. And then in the breeding side, I think you're going to actually see us active buying and selling. The breeding side is about selling. It's the business aspect of it. So some of the mares that we have who are going to be in foal to Force the Pass or even other stallions, I think you're going to see them go through the sales ring in the fall, and we'll be buying new ones. So I think you're going to see churn there. I hope that gave you some vision, Aiden, of what we'll be doing. Jeff asked a question of me. Do I see claiming activity in the coming months as the primary source of expansion of the string? I would say yes. I would say we're going to be very active at the 3 venues that I mentioned: Laurel, Gulfstream, and Oaklawn. You're going to see us claiming quite a bit, mostly because we're going to be looking to buy and claim stock that can go to places like Canterbury and Monmouth and New York. You got to have the stock to go there. And so you're going to see us buying there. Honestly, it's been very hard to claim in Maryland for the last couple months. The quality just hasn't been there. We've been looking for months and months. But I just haven't found a lot of quality that I like there. There's actually a horse on Friday we're going to take a deep look at. Probably will not drop just because I am having one heck of a busy week. Um, but uh, but we're looking at horses there. It's just a much harder place to claim. Oaklawn is wild for claiming, not just crazy. I want to talk about wild because it's like 30 people drop on every horse that's any good. So we got lucky last year and won a lot of shakes. We might lose them this year, but we'll see how that goes. But we're going to be active. And Gulfstream, you already see us very active for those that play the claiming game. So, got a question, came late. Can you speak a bit about the claiming game strategies, opportunities, red flags? Seems like there's a lot of consideration behind the scenes. Yes, for those of you who are not playing on the claiming game on Slack, I try to give tons and tons of educational moments after every claim, or not claim for that matter, when we don't claim, or why we found the horse and didn't pass on a horse, or when we run the claiming game and 16 people pick the same horse and we don't like it. I usually tell exactly why we didn't like it. So yes, things, I mean, we actually have done a webinar on claiming. If you go on our YouTube channel, you'll actually find a lot about us talking about claiming and some of the things that we look for and how the claiming process works. But if you're not playing or watching at least the claiming game, you're probably missing out on a lot of fun from an education standpoint. I will tell you that. Don Walsh, always good with the dry joke. He loves that he gets more chances to lose at the claiming game. Yes, it's sure. As the club gets bigger, it's harder and harder. It's harder and harder to win the claiming game. That's for sure. One thing I will say about the claiming game, there are times, and when we've done this in the past, where I don't give all the details. You have to understand that claiming horses is kind of a secretive process, and there are times when we might look at a horse, like a horse, but didn't drop and may drop next time. So sometimes we do that, and I don't explain all of that until we actually drop on a horse. It's one of those things. I will tell you, we well, the person is still a club member and still active, actually. But we had a club member one time publish all of the horses we were looking at on Facebook. And I had to explain to that person that you can't do that because it makes it very difficult for us to claim horses when everybody knows the horses that we're trying to claim. So I'm a little more close to the vest a little bit about sometimes horses that we're just looking at. For those of you that don't know, we actually have built our own internal tracking system for tracking horses that we want to purchase. And the system actually feeds data and does notifications to the team about every time that horse works out, every time that horse is entered. We're building a video library as well, so that it's got built-in video libraries on every single horse. It's got a lot of notes and data that can be tracked. For example, George uses the tracking system when we're looking to claim or buy privately horses that are racing that are good for breeding. He has tons of details and notes. In 2020, as you know, we have a whole engineering team. We probably have the largest engineering team in the entire equine world, as a matter of fact. I can't imagine anybody has more software engineers than we do. But I'm actually fairly certain over at TacJack, which is our handicapping company that we launched at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020 here, we're actually going to create our own virtual stables system so that any member over there, you can create and track your own virtual stable using the technology that we internally have built for tracking horses for claims and purchases. We're going to open that up so that any member over there can use it. So, and the way I describe it is, envision if you know Equibase's virtual stable system, I want you to envision that on steroids. That's what we're building. So really exciting technology stuff. Speaking of technology stuff, I would be remiss for not mentioning our engineering team. Today they launched a new iOS app and a new Android app. So if you have the old app, you should update it. It is live and new as of today. The biggest changes, there were some bug fixes, but the biggest changes were great enhancements to the financial disclosure statements, the financial settlement sheets. All the stuff that was released on the web is now on the iOS and Android app. By the way, I am pretty sure we are the one of only 2 syndicates in the country that have our own apps as well. So something else you guys should be proud of. Any other questions on anything? Hopefully I covered a lot of data and gave you a flavor of what we're doing for sure. Oh, I will mention one more thing just to give people a second in case any more questions come in. Like I said, we'll probably wrap up here no matter what at the top of the hour. But I mentioned in the document that we're going to have some new internships coming. We will probably, you'll see that sometime, probably the first one sometime at the end of Q1 and maybe sometime in Q2 or Q3. We'll have some new types of internships. I think Lauren has enjoyed being a bloodstock agent intern, and I think it's been really cool. And frankly, she's been really, really helpful being part of the team. And I think it's been both educational and helpful all the way around. So it was so successful. I think we're going to expand some of that in 2020 and offer some other types of internship programs as well. So you'll see some about that. We're probably also going to expand some of our business side of the house as well. So you might see some of those things coming down in 2020 as some of those other sort of back office businesses I mentioned take off. Any last questions? I'm happy to be helpful in the last couple of minutes. But if you don't have any other questions, I'm going to go to dinner. Is where I'm going. So. But thanks everybody for coming tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I really love that you're part of the club. It makes it highly enjoyable and wonderful. And I hope we have a wonderful 2020. So thank you, and see you in Oaklawn.